certain things like exercise, deliberate cold exposure, stimulants like caffeine, and prescription drugs like Adderall, et cetera, powerfully cause the release of these catecholamines, dopamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine, leading to big increases in energy and focus. But then always, 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 there's a cost, a trough that follows. Accept that, relax through it, then return to baseline and then go forward. Or avoid those things altogether. I'm not telling people what to do. Obviously, the prescription drug thing in particular can be, problematic for some people, even addictive. And certainly I'm not a fan of drugs of abuse like cocaine and amphetamine, absolutely categorically. Never done them, never will. And then other people who tend to veer toward, being hyperactivated, a lot of spontaneous movement. These people tend to be a little bit thinner, a little bit leaner, or just have a ton of natural energy. These people should really learn to incorporate more kind of what I would call calming and relaxing practices. Maybe a bit more sauna than cold plunge. Maybe don't crank the sauna to 220. I find myself doing that. I'm like, just relax, like enjoy the sauna. And so I think the key to a good life and a productive life is, again, to learn to master the transition states, understand some of the biology, and to really know yourself, not just your natural tendency, more bulldog-like versus, I don't know, pit bulls always have their tail going, a lot of spontaneous movement. There are other breeds as well. But also know that on any given day, you may be more or less rested. You might be more or less depleted from life experience, and kind of recognize where you're at and figure out what's optimal for that day. In fact, I forget who the guy is. He's on Instagram, and there are a lot of self-help accounts out there. But one of the best things that I've heard recently, and I try to incorporate it into my life, in fact, it's in my notebook, is when I wake up in the morning, I sort of take stock of where I am in terms of how rested I am. I certainly take stock of what I need to do that day. And then I ask, what's something that I can do to make my life that day and the life of others better? Sometimes that means rest a little bit more. Sometimes that means push a little bit more. Sometimes that means call a relative that you haven't spoken to. But thinking about how to make things better on the timescale of a day for oneself and for others, I think is what's manageable. And it's what's realistic. And it takes this whole concept of protocols and biohacking and prescription drugs and supplements and workouts, and it brings a real world perspective to it. So I think we're living in the time of kind of almost avatars of these different things. Like I think about David Goggins, who I know well from the perspective of coworker, right? Where I consider him a friend, but we've never hung out outside of the work context. But I first met David back in 2016, and I'll tell you, he's always that way, at least when I've interacted with him. He's always been, forward center of mass. It was late in the day on a work, this was a thing in Silicon Valley, it was down in San Jose, Santa Clara, San Jose area, I believe it was 2016, and we had been working all day in this part of this consult for this company. And in the afternoon, there was like, do we take a break or do we push? He's like, no, we push, we're gonna do this. And I thought, whoa, like this guy's intense. And he was changing because he was gonna run to the airport, but not run to the airport in an Uber or drive to the airport. He meant run to the airport. And he did. So, he's forward center of mass. He clearly has the energy, or he's found the energy.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.